Hello and welcome to Fixing South Sudan, your ideas for building the new nation. I am Adingor.
The media houses which are talking of being harassed or intimidated, that is not correct unless you are in conflict with the law, as I said. But if you are in conformity with the law, nobody will ever interfere with you. South Sudan is one of the countries in which there is freedom of press and freedom of expression. And South Sudan laws are the best laws here in the region. And there happens sometimes a misapplication or abuse of power. There is difference between abuse of power by individuals and what the law says. And if, in case there is any abuse of power, you have the right to seek your rights before our student of the university said that when we were fighting, we fought for federalism. No, you were not even a fighter. I'm sure. We did not fight for federalism.
Maybe his father did.
Maybe his father did. But if his father did also, his father should have given him the right information.
But the subset of his question was,
okay,
we were fighting against centralization, and then we came and centralized things.
We have not centralized. This is why there are states now. So we are still under a decentralized system. And as I stated earlier, a decentralized system is part and parcel, is another type of federalism. This is what I said. We have not centralized. Otherwise, everything will be centralized.
Thank you very much.
For the resources must be clearly defined. People talk of federalism, but there are some states that have nothing completely, that cannot afford even to pay the least
civil
services to its people. And there are some states that own the oil, and if we say that these resources must be owned by the owners, then some states will have to vanish, and some states will go to the sky. This is why it is important that you need to define what are national resources and what are not national resources. You cannot just leave it open like that. Otherwise, those states with the oil as the only source of income now, those few states with the oil will be the richest in South Sudan, and others will be turned into beggars. So there is need for us to come up with the correct mechanism. Define exactly what is a national resource. These national resources are the ones which are allocated to the states, not equally, but equitably. Equitably, because there are some states with resources that may be deemed, that could be deemed to be of the states. And out of these national resources, the national government, which is the federal government now, will give out to each state according to its need. Not equally, but equitably. That is one thing which I wanted to talk about. When we talk about federalism, please, let us keep away from indulging into politics. Because we are here to discuss as intellectuals, we are here to discuss as professionals, we are here to discuss as individuals who know what we are talking about. But when you begin to mix between what the government is doing and what we are discussing here, then it is unfortunate. So let us separate between issues. Yes, we know that there are things that are going wrong, and this is why we are here. We are not here to blame the past, but to plan the way forward. This is what we came for here. So let us start fixing South Sudan. Let us fix South Sudan so that we move forward.
And
we should not fix it so that we blame the past.
And here is my question for you.
Yes.
Can federalism fix South Sudan?
Yes, federalism can fix South Sudan if it is properly studied and organized.
Thank you very much. Can I have the Honorable Minister say something? Can you react quickly? Because we have to end this discussion.
Really, most of the discussions on the floor were comments, few questions, and I think only one question really touches me. The rest touch the other people. Mine is, how far has the government gone on what has the government done so far? Well, my ministry is a new ministry, and you know we are starting with the research and with the documentation, with the dissemination, this being part of the dissemination. So we are still at the early stage of our struggle to establish federalism in South Sudan. As a working group, we have so far conducted 2 technical workshops on federalism. One is to do with the devolution of powers and devolution of resources, and the other one is to do with the representation of lower level governments at the national government, like issue of Council of States, how is the Council of States composed, and what is it supposed to do to protect the interests of the states, and representation and the state institutions of the various regions, ethnicities, and so forth, the national character, called the national character. So we have done those 2, and we are to continue with the 3 more. The next will be on intergovernmental relations and the role of local government and the structure of federal government and system as such. We are still to do those. And so far you will see some red pamphlets, which are brochures, which are flying around. This is our way of trying to disseminate information to the public. The second thing we did was to conduct training for the media houses who are now here today, and the launching is to enable them to disseminate information to the whole country. And the third thing that we did was to train TOT, training of trainers. We have so far trained a group of people to send them to the various states of South Sudan. So we have not so far been involved in the issue of number of states or the issue of boundaries of states, because this has been the prerogative of the IBC and the TBC, and we will not try to interfere with the work of bodies specifically established by the agreement or by the government who are doing specific things. So far, I think this is the little reaction I can give, but if there are things that concern my ministry later, I will be able to come back.
Thank you very much. Honorable John Luke.
Well, I think the central objective of this coming together here is to clear the air, so that those who say they are being arrested because of talking about federalism cannot be arrested, because federalism is a system of governance. And we are also saying as a government that the system we have is not too far away from a federal system. So I think definitely the media houses should go away knowing that with the presence of us here, as ministers in the same in this government, is that federalism is not a taboo. You know, federal is something accepted. And the agreement itself has provided the basis for it. It is even calling for a democratic, that federalism must be based on democracy, good governance, rule of law, respect for human rights and diversity, respect for regional and ethnic diversity. All these are in the agreement. So we were not expected to come and produce a blueprint of whatever federal type of federal system we are going to have. No. The agreement establishes a body that will handle it, that will be structured like the national dialogue that is happening. That will be the constitutional conference of South Sudanese people. They will have to come with whatever ideas they have. There is a commission will be set up, the conference will be held, will be organized, and in fact, the dialogue, the national dialogue, maybe we can benefit from it, from the ideas that they are generating, but the constitutional conference, which will be the real body entrusted with this work of defining the details of the federal system, will come out with its own. Nobody here would come with a blueprint and say, this is the federal system we want. No. It will be something that will be discussed for months and months until we agree. Number two, I want to say that no system of governance can work if the citizens who are to be governed by that system do not accept it. A society that is so divided diametrically cannot even be held by simply writing a law that this is it. So we really need to talk to ourselves. If we accept to have a nation, a state called South Sudan, then the concerns of everybody have to be addressed so that we get consensus, and we now move to put what we have agreed, and this is what will happen during the constitutional conference. What we will agree will be the constitution we will respect, we will have. And of course, if you have a constitution also which you don't respect, then it is as valueless as the paper on which it is written. So people have to learn that when we talk of constitutionalism, it is not just in the abstract. You know, it is following the procedures. It is respecting the black-letter law that is there in the Constitution. But if if you have Constitution which we don't follow, then it is as meaningless as even we don't have a Constitution. I would also advise that our understanding or our contribution, even in the future, will be more effective if we inform ourselves better. Issues, I heard comments on decentralization, devolution, and federalism. We have these are concepts we have to understand well, so that we can see where they fit, rather than being so dismissive. You see, if we will have a national government instead, or we use the 3 levels up to the local government, it is a matter of really defining what they should be doing, what are their powers, and how are they protected by the Constitution. If we don't respect the Constitution, then even those powers will be meaningless when they are put in a document. So my appeal is that let the press now try to tell the people. The ideas will come from our people, what they want, the type of system they want, the type of federal system they want, and how powers can be shared. Should it be presidential? Should it be parliamentary? What is the system of courts that we are going to have? Is it a dual judiciary, a dual system? All these things are the details that even members of parliament should contribute to in this debate, and not expect them to be spoon-fed by a panel like this, this is what they will be. Thank you very much.
Honorable Onyoti.
Thank you so much. In fact, I appreciate the participation in this and their comments and so forth. But one thing I would like to say is, when we are building a nation, it is a process. And the process needs people to be patient. It is a long process, and there are a lot of challenges in it. So when we talk of it, we need the leadership and the citizen to agree of whatever they need, they want. You know, federal system will be good when we come and discuss it like this and agree. And that is the 2 ways. You have the horizontal federal system, where judiciary, executive, and independent legislative is there. And this thing should come back, should come down if they are all, the three wings are equal because of check and balance. Check and balance is the most important thing. And then you come down to vertical federalism, where you have the federal system of government, the state system of government, as well as the local government. And these things, the powers is given by all of us, not by individuals. It is all of us agreeing that we need these powers. I will just disagree that the interference of the federal government into the states or the state into the local government, no. Because we will establish a constitutional court. Because if there is any constitutional differences, it is the constitutional court which will come and deal with it accordingly. If it is the difference between the government, the federal government and the state, or the state and the local, then these things should be in charge, the powers should be in charge in it. Even when we come up, the resources, which is very important. I will disagree that the resources which are found in the state belong to the states. If they belong to why not to the locality? Because the local government is the one having the ground, not the states, not the federal government. So as mentioned by Mokwe before, there is really a need to define the resources. Which one are national and which one are the states? Because we are one. And even when we come to delegation, which ministry will go to the states? Which will be more powerful? Which will remain in the federal government? And these things we need to go because, as I said before, everything depends on the service delivery we need to the people. And if you have service delivery, then it should go down to the local government. And then we say that, yes, what percentage within the resources go to the local governments, and which one go to the states, and which one remain with the local government. And we'll put it clearly in the Constitution, because the Constitution will be the guidance of whatever we do. So without this, or if it is one state which will be the one which will make it alone, then it will not be working. And as I said before, the federal system, you have compared it, how best it is. Is it with parliamentary system? Is it with presidential system? And which one is a uniting factor? Because the important thing we have is the unity of the people, the stability. What is happening now is because of weak institutions. The institutions which we are having now are very weak. Whether parliamentary, whether it is political system, whether it is the security sector, whatever, even the media. We need to have strong institutions which will look and analyze things critically according to the needs of the people. So if we have a strong institution, they will not come unless we have a strong constitution and strong laws and enforcement of the laws. Because sometimes the laws can be there very beautiful, like what has been said by my people here. If we say the constitution is good, but the institution to implement it are weak, this is another issue. So these are the things we need really to do to reinforce. We reinforce the unity of the people. We instill stability. We try to reform the security sector. We try to reform the public sector. We try to reform the political sector so that people act accordingly.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you
you.
have really fixed it this morning. Honorable Angelina, welcome.
Thank you very much. Most were comment, but there was a fundamental question that was raised by Apio, and Honorable Minister tried to give an answer, but I think the question was in place because when Honorable Minister was actually launching earlier, he said there will be media houses that would be selected to do this dissemination or whatever, or the campaign on federalism. Now the question raises itself: who selects this? Is it not up to the media houses to decide what they want to champion? That's number one. He also said something about we must have a unified message. Whose message is unified?
Question for you.
Because we all have, as we're debating here now, there are many, many different concepts that are coming up. They can never be unified. The idea is for people to come up with consensus at the end of the day. So the media should not be delivering a unified message, but rather the views that are coming across on the matter itself, to enrich the debate so that we are able to reach the consensus. So those concerns, I want to add my voice that Your Excellency, Honorable Minister, the freedom of press, freedom of expression, political space are fundamental for us to move forward with these issues. I want to quote that the President has assured us a couple of weeks back, after their face-to-face meeting, that the political space would now be allowed, and we really would want this to be observed because it will help us implement not only the discussion on federalism, but the implementation of the agreement, which in itself is a process of reform. Our agreement is an agenda of reform for the Republic. That's number one. Number two, I want to come back to the issue of the powers and the resources in relation to federalism. You see, when you establish weak states, states that have barely enough population, barely enough resources, to be able to at least meet some of their needs. In fact, what you're doing, you're creating a dependency to the center, which means you're basically killing federalism. You're killing the idea of devolution of power and resources. This is why this idea of the 32 state, and I'm glad that it was raised that, you know, you have weak states that probably don't necessarily have enough resources. These are some of the criteria, because a state must meet at least some of its need, and so on. That's number one. In this regard, and I want to go back to the issue of why we feel that resources should belong to the level of government where they are at. It's simply, you're actually giving back capacity. You're giving back capacity. It depends on the system of your sharing. For example, the system of sharing that we put, our position was that out of the local resources, you would say 20% remain with that level. The 80% must be shared not only with the center. You may give the center maybe 30% out of what you produce as a state. Whether you produce sim-sim, whether you produce whatever resource that you have, so that you are able to develop actually your resources and compete, and so on. Instead of taking away this power for you to be able to develop your capacity, to develop your own resources, so that you are able to compete. You give that to the center. Maybe you take another 50% out of that, and this is what we put. The 50% must be what's shared amongst the different states. So each state, no matter how big or how little resource you have, you must share it with all the different level of the states. And that actually evens out. It evens out. It doesn't leave some of the states more richer. They may be slightly better off because they have more resources. Now, we went as far as discussing the utilization and the exploitation and the development of the resources. For example, the oil resource. The oil resource, you would not leave it to the state to actually develop it. You would have a system shared with the national level in order to how to develop this resource, because this resource, it goes across a number of states. It's not only one state. So you must have a unified system of developing such a resource and other resources such as gold and so on and so forth. You would have national laws to develop those. So I think these are the things that people should start debating and discussing. on some of those views and how we see how we move forward. Now, I want to say something very, very key. And this thing has been, from us, the elites. And it has to do with us not trusting others to be able to deliver and do things. And this is why you hear this element of control, that there must be a level of control at the center. One of the reasons why we are having issues in our capital, everybody moved to the capital because everything is concentrated in the capital. If your resources were to be at the state level, if your legislator at the state level has the capacity and is allowed to legislate because they have a constitution, definitely the capacity will go there. If there are resources in the state, why would I be kind of rushing to come to the center? Why do we believe, as elites here and the center, that actually we are better capacitated to look after resources and to look after power and so on and so forth? We also must trust our people at a different level, and it will help us actually move. Capacity will begin to move from the center to the state, to the local level, where the people are, so people don't congest in the capital. And this is a very important principle when it comes to the issue of federalism. In fact, it's one of the reasons, it's one of the purposes that you take power and resources close to the people so people remain where they are and they have access to everything that you can access in the capital. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is Fixing South Sudan, your ideas for building the new nation. With me, Madingor, and with us on the panel, Honorable Michael McQuinleth, Minister of Information, Communication Technology and Postal Services, and a spokesman of the government of South Sudan, Honorable Dr. Richard K. Muller, Minister of Federal Affairs, Honorable John Luke Jock, Minister of Transport, Honorable Onyoti Edigo Nyukwaj, Minister of Agriculture, and agriculture is everything. Honorable Angelina Teng, Chairperson, Strategic Defense and Security Review, and that brings us to the final part of our panel discussion, the last chance to the floor, and then they will conclude. I'm going to give a few chances, and we will bring it back to the panel for the last round. Honorable Luka Manoja earlier wanted to say something.
Yes, thank you very much, Madingor. I'm Luka Manoja, Member of Parliament, National Legislative Assembly. I have 3 points to make. One, it's a prerequisite that we fought for freedom because we thought we lacked freedom, we lacked democracy, and we were being marginalized. And we were being controlled. Incidental, and then we were always crying federalism since 1948. So it is a matter of surprise to me that after 60 years, we are still thinking of what type of federalism. For 6 years, we did not know what type of federalism. We need to explain ourselves. Number two, we are a new state. We have come out from an oppressive system where government was a system of control. We, being sovereign and free, we should look at government as a system of facilitation. It's not a system of give, where I'm giving. You are not giving anybody. We are sharing because you are now free people. This mentality, let us leave it in Khartoum. It should not come down here. Second of that, we need to realize, and there are, of those 5 people, 3 are lawyers, a constitution is always work in progress. There is no fixed constitution. So that's when people say permanent constitution is a bizarre idea, because any situation can come and we go on amending. It is a life experience. Now, I want to appreciate the intervention by Honorable John Luke Jock, and finally by the Minister of Information, that what we should be discussing here is not whether or not federalism. Because we have demanded it for 70 years, the agreement has agreed that. So what would we be discussing here, for which we must be able to commit ourselves, is what are the levels of power which we give. Because these are the ones we can discuss. We can say, oh no, this power should be here, this power should be there, so that when we come out with a sense of commitment. It is not useful for us to say, give example of Ethiopia, Nigeria, whatever it is. No, because the federation we want is the choice we make. We know the powers exercised today, and we are the ones who know in our own country which power should be at what level, irrespective of whether in Ethiopia or America or Nigeria it is. So it is redundant to ask the question, what type of federalism? No, there is only one type of federalism. Federalism is a sharing of powers between different levels of government. There is no other type. And every country decides. And I know that, like Honorable Makwe said, let us not confuse what is happening in the government today and what we want to present to the people for a choice in the National Conference. You know, there is no advantage between a presidential and parliamentary system. And I want to say, when we speak in this forum, we at all levels are leaders in our own way. So we should not be bored in generalities. We must commit specific things so that I'm able to modify what you say and you are able to disagree so that we produce a final outcome. It is a scapegoat to give all the global examples of the world. We are mature, we are independent, we need to make a choice. And the choice we are making today, Mr. Madingor and the Honorable Minister of Federal Affairs, is that this fora should be focused as to what type of administrative powers do we want to be exercised, not given, exercised at the state, at the county level. What monies or finances do we want to be at which level? Mr. Minister and Mr. Moderator, these are my points. Thank you.
You very much. Governor Narciso.
Thank you, Madingor, the High Table. Actually, I will not say much. I'm Narciso Loluke Manir. I am the member of National Dialogue. I want to say this process is a very important process and a landmark in the history of our country. As it was said, Makwe gave the history from 1947 and even beyond that until today. We have been talking about federalism. From the research that we did in National Dialogue, we have gone to every corner of South Sudan in the National Dialogue. And I think we need not to take people back. The people of South Sudan, through the National Dialogue, have decided. They have decided on federalism. Whether in Barghazal, Upper Nile, or Equatoria, they have decided. What is required? The ministry, as it was said by Dr. Luka, the Ministry of Federal Affairs should not waste time. We are not going to do pasting, copy and paste. No. Because if somebody said, what kind of federal system you want, that question is irrelevant. Because our history is there. Our administrative process is there. The institutions that are there. We need to reform them. We need to make sure these things are operative. Now, the discussion today, I agree with Dr. Luka that really we need to look, and I agree with the definitions that has been given, although they are completely, some are different. Of course, that is true. That's human nature. But what I say is that really federalism is mainly about power and competencies. It is about resource sharing. How do we share these resources? But above all, it is about the vision and the political will. Because whatever we said, if you, the 6 or the 5 on the high table, do not have love for the country, and you don't agree on the way forward, then all of us here will be talking, but with no headway.
Thank you very much.
Sincerely, I want to say also about the issue of national dialogue. National dialogue, if not anything, is complementary to the peace agreement. And I want to state this. And to our sister, she said they are contradictory. I'm not in agreement in that. In fact, the national dialogue is reinforcing. So I still also appeal to the IO to join the national dialogue. Because whatever is in the national dialogue is not individual, it is the South.
Thank you
so
very
we
much.
need the South. Thank you very much.
You need your own forum for that.
Thank you so much. I'm called Nyayang Johnson Locke, Member of Parliament. And I want to thank the moderator for fixing South Sudan. I think you try your best to fix South Sudan, and we'll fix it all together. It's a concern, actually, not a question, to the Minister, Honorable Minister of Federal Affairs. My concern is that you have invited the media to go and campaign about the federalism. I don't see the message that you have given to the media to campaign to the public about the federalism. The ministry is supposed to come up with suggestions, because as a government, you have to suggest to the people. We have been talking here, confusing our people, ourselves, that we don't know the type of the federalism we want. And as Honorable Makwe put it, that there is limitation. In everything there is limitation. But you will never have limitations when you do not suggest what you want. And I think it's very important for the ministry to suggest to the media and the people of South Sudan what the government wants. What type of the federalism the government wants. It's supposed to be 2 to 3 type of the federalism the government wants. And also we will hear from the grassroots, from our people, the type also they wanted. So to me, Honorable Minister, as you are coming to talking to the people here, you need to have something to suggest, not to collect what the people want, as it is the duty of your ministry. I know in the working group we have done a lot, but also as the ministry, you have to come with the policy of the government. What do the government want? It will be able for you to control whoever wants to talk out of the system. But if you don't give any policy, you will never control the people to talk whatever thing they want to say. Thank you.
As much as I want to keep going here, this is federalism, so we have to move to the other side.
All right, thank you so much. I'm Daniel Juma Isenade. I'm a broadcast journalist with Advance Youth Radio. I just want to point out straight about the issue of the selection of the media houses. As stated by the Minister of the Federal Affairs, and also Honorable Angelina stated it. There are few media houses selected to disseminate this message. And my outcry is that we shouldn't limit the media houses, because we want to disseminate a message out. So the more media houses we limit the number of media houses, we also limit the message going out there. So we shouldn't limit the media houses.
Thank you.
And then another thing is also selected media houses. What about the freelance journalists also?
Thank you very much. Another question from the floor here on this side.
Thank you. Sorry.
Is that fixing or is corrupting?
It's fixing and also asking a question. Not corruption. Mine is a question, but I want to
say your name. Yeah.
My name is Cholber, South Sudanese. Because, of course, where we work from do not necessarily reflect our ideas here. We are here, South Sudanese, fixing ideas or fixing the South Sudan.
Go to your question.
My question is to Angelina. Whose resources are to be shared and who will share the resources? That's why it is very good to first define the resources. Who owns the resources? The ownership of the resources is a fundamental thing that has to be looked at first before you decide what ratio you will give what. Because if you don't know who owns the resources, and then you are saying we are sharing resources, then it don't really come out well. First, it has to be decided who owns the resources, and then who will share the resources. Who had the authority to share the resources? Because we have issues here in South Sudan. We had an example of mile 14. It was left for the people of Awil or some community there to protest that the area is being annexed by the Sudan government. And it was left to the community. Some oil some resources are lying across the borders. Do we leave those resources to the communities where they come from? Or do we give that resources to somebody who had authority to manage those resources?
Thank you very much.
Again, the issue of type of federalism and the way we have been talking about it since 1947, we are different generation. The generation that was talking about the federalism in 1947, that's the same generation that is talking now. The generation that was there in 1982 that was talking about federalism, we're talking about the korokoro, the definition. I mean the division of the people, chasing some people away from the... So we are different generation. When we are talking
and
here...
what are you saying? What is your generation saying?
My generation is saying that we have to have a federalism where we respect ourselves, not the vision of South Sudanese.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the last round with the audience. I'm sorry we don't have time. And we begin with Honorable Angelina, and we end with Honorable Michael McQuay.
Now, just to start with the last question by Shul. Whose resources? The resources that belong to the people of that state. Resources must belong to the state where they emanate from. And that state now is given, there is a national formula on how to share those resources. And that's now the sharing of the resources coming. That doesn't necessarily mean that that state takes the lion's share. But it means that the resources belong to it, and there is a formula that is by the Constitution that will divide those resources. And it becomes not somebody sitting in the Ministry of Finance here in Juba deciding what goes where and who's to be given what. But you would have clear percentages and so on and so forth. So this is where the resources come from. I want to, number one, because this is the last remark, I want to, number one, say that I welcome this debate. And we're very happy as IO to take part in this debate. And we're ready to discuss our ideas and so on and so forth. We all have constituencies. We all have constituencies. There is a constituency, the government is our government, and by the virtue of being government has a responsibility over every citizen in this Republic of South Sudan. However, there are constituencies that are outside of this government. There are constituencies that you also must listen to and you must hear. And I agree with the presenter here that the debate on national dialogue, we give it another forum. This is not the forum for it. But it is generalization to say we went to every corner in South Sudan. That's simply not true.
With the exception of Akobo and Raja.
No. The exception of areas controlled by the opposition. Put it that way. Because I can go on, the list is long. Just because the national dialogue identify Akobo and Raja, that doesn't mean that those are the areas and so on. So that must be put in, must be heard very clearly. The other point that I want to agree with those who said the case for federalism is made. And that's not what we're discussing here. Including the government, they're basically saying that we are basically coming up with ideas on how to move forward because the case is made. It is now a law because it is in the agreement. You must remember that the agreement is supreme to the Constitution. And the agreement says federalism is the way to go. So it is already agreed. We are just working out the modalities, how we go about it, and so on and so forth. My last message.
And your last message, can you answer my question about fixing South Sudan? Can federalism fix South Sudan?
Definitely. Federalism can fix South Sudan. And I want to address the fear that has been raised. People raise the fear that actually federalism may result in disunity. Federalism is about self-governance. People, we have addressed our issues in Sudan in totality. Over the years, every time we go through a conflict, we come up with a new system of governance, even before we became an independent state. When you come during the round table in 1964 or 65, they actually had to discuss a new system of governance for people to move forward. The same in 1972 when the agreement was formed, the agreement of the 72. There was a system of governance where South Sudan was allowed a self-governing autonomy and so on. So the people of South Sudan, what they want is not for them to separate from each other, but rather for them to be able to govern themselves the way they see fit.
Thank you.
So self-governance does not mean disunity. In fact, it means unity, because you're recognizing now the diversity, the views, and the other thing that we have to be aware of is that you can never actually force unity. They tried in the former Sudan. They really tried by all means to force unity. We became an independent state. If there are people who are determined to be an independent state, we may suppress it for so long, but all we need to do is basically allow the people the freedom to be able to express so that we can address what are the concerns.
Thank you very much.
Rather than suppressing.
Thank you very much. Very quickly, Honorable.
Thank you very much. I would say that federalism will fix South Sudan. When we build South Sudan on a strong institution of governance at different levels of government and make well a steady federal system of government based on a parliamentary system of government. For effective services delivery, transparency and accountability are the key to success. There is a need for social and economic transformation. The government is to enable the people to live a good life, and this needs policies and mechanisms that facilitate increased production, more trade, and attract investment.
And
so
food.
thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Honorable John, food security.
Food security.
You have forgotten yourself.
Yeah, I just want to, your question, whether federalism can fix the problems that we have. Yes, we are communities. We have 64. People have talked of South Sudan is comprised of 64 communities or ethnicities. If we designed our federal system in a way that nobody will find, no community will find itself marginalized, then the federal system will work. We share the resources, we participate in the government equitably, each according to their size. If we do all this, then federalism can fix our situation. But if we don't do it, if we do the opposite, then the tendencies, because you cannot live in, just like in marriage, you cannot live in a marriage that is not workable, that is not working. You know, you always divorce. And all over the world, you have heard some countries or some communities, some areas or regions trying to break away from the main country. So we are mindful about all this, and I think we will build our federal system with full knowledge that what our people need is that they will no others will be supreme over the others. We will be equal treatment of all the communities of South Sudan, and they will benefit from the peace that we will establish and the resources of our country. My other comment is on the issue of resources itself. You know, federalism, there are two ways by which people come into a federal system. Two different entities can decide to come together. Two entities, two countries, two whatever can come together and decide to come together and form a federal system for certain specific reasons, either for security, for their own, for defense, for things that they cannot do. That can happen. But when you are talking of federation, you want to establish a federal system within an existing unified or united structure like we have, then for the federation itself to work, the states, the component parts, will have to contribute Because federalism and the national government will be an abstract thing that if you don't contribute to it the resources that you need for it to perform certain national services to the whole country, then how will it work? It will not work.
Thank
you
you
will not
very
get the
much.
resources.
Thank you.
So it is very important to note that once as a country that is already a united country, and we have agreed that the federal system is what will be good for us, then it is all the components of it, the states that have resources, to contribute, to give those resources to it, to the federal government, but also equitably allocate to the states, even including those that do not have the resources, for instance. If the oil, take the oil, for example, as an example, would you say you want to take the people in Upper Nile, take the oil, and then only release, I would say we will be giving to the national government? No, because you did not own these resources before the federation was formed. If you are coming to unity as different entities, separate entities, then sometimes you argue that, no, I will only relinquish this to the national government, the federal government.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, okay.
Thank you. Very quickly, Honorable Minister.
Thank you. I think my colleagues have said a lot of things, but I want to react to 3 points. One is I want to answer Honorable Loluke Monir that the ministry is not wasting time. The ministry is already going ahead. We've started our research. We're doing our documentations. We have already started dissemination as from today. Next time, we will be sending out our TOTs. We have trained people to go and disseminate in the states, so we are not wasting time for your information. Then another is to Honorable Nyayang, that the ministry must, as of now, have had a prepared documentation with a clear message from the government for the people to make choices. I would say no, we are beginning, we are still researching, we are finally going to end up with a blueprint, and when our blueprint is ready, is that time when we will have a clear message to the population. But as of now, we're encouraging debate so that people understand the principle of federalism, the meaning of federalism, the contradictions and so forth, so that we build a consensus on the issue of federalism. We cannot give a government message as of now. And Makwe said earlier on, if that message is ready, it will be presented to the Council of Ministers for blessing, and then it will come to the public. But now we are promoting your understanding of federalism. Finally, a journalist said that there are selected houses. Yes, at the moment, because we do give training. We have trained some media houses, and those media houses, we ask them to go and give correct messages. We will be conducting more training. We are not excluding any media house. We are not excluding freelance journalists, but we need to train you before we can say you talk on our behalf. Otherwise, you can go and say something that is against our policy. Thank you very much. But federalism will fix South Sudan. I repeat, this is the second time, and the last moment of this occasion, I'm repeating what I said in the first one, that federalism will fix South Sudan.
Thank you. Honorable Michael Makwe.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Richard. Yes, federalism will fix South Sudan. There are so many issues, to sum up.
Yes, summarize.
Federalism is the only way forward that will fix South Sudan. Yes, the fact that we are asking us to what type of federalism are you talking about? I think I had stated earlier that there are some federal states which have not declared themselves to be federal. What matters is the powers and the resources. How do you allocate them, and so forth. In so doing, you can call yourself whatever. So in terms of federalism, we want to know is to see how best can we divide these resources, how can we share them, how can we share power. Once these are agreed, the question of the name of federalism will not matter. So let us agree that yes, federalism will fix South Sudan. On the selection of the journalists, which was answered by, or the media houses, you see, media houses, even though I'm not a party to it, they are not just selected at random. There are certain set criteria that you will meet so that you qualify for that task. And if you don't qualify for that task, don't take it that you have been excluded for any other reason other than having not qualified. So there criteria that are used for the selection. It is not a random selection. As for the unified messages, the message ought to be unified because you must all go and pass the same message to the people. Sensitize them on the type of federalism, types of federalism, and how powers and resources are shared therein. This is the most important. How powers and resources are shared in those systems. In so doing, you are actually sensitizing and educating the public so that when time comes for them to decide, they will decide from an informed position. This is all that Ministry of Federal Affairs is doing now, to sensitize the people so that people know what is needed from them at the end of the day. On the issue of political space, I don't know, and freedom of expression, I don't know what does my sister here mean by political space. If by political space you mean freedom of expression, it is already there. And none of the opposition parties has ever been stopped from holding a public rally here in Juba or from going to any other place to go and talk to the people. I don't know what type of political space are they talking about, but there is already a political space for everybody. And this is why we are talking about the launching of the media campaign. In the media campaign, you will definitely be talking. And you are free to hold a public rally, call a public rally in Juba, and express your opinion. And tell us what are your reform programs. This is what I can say. So there is no problem about that. For the states to determine the number of states, this is not our area now. But when you talk of the states, also you put into consideration the rights of the people, the rights of those people, those communities. And if we talk about the right to self-rule or transferring powers to the people, then you are actually authorizing them, you are actually empowering them. And in the course of doing that, you need to empower them, give them the power and the resources. Because you cannot give power without resources. And you cannot give resources without power. There must be somebody there a power must be there to manage these resources. Otherwise, if you just send it like that, you will not make it.
Last thought.
Before I go to your last thought, yes, I agree with Brother Munir that national dialogue is actually complementary to the agreement. There are certain provisions, there are certain issues which are not addressed in the agreement. And they are being addressed through the national dialogue. So, the brothers and sisters who are in the opposition and have not joined did not join the national dialogue at area levels, I'm sure they will participate in the national dialogue that will take place. If they are willing to work for the people of South Sudan and ensure that issues of South Sudan are addressed. Because it is at the national dialogue level, leave the states level, but at the national dialogue level, this is where outstanding issues and critical decisions will be taken with the participation of all the South Sudanese. So, the national dialogue is not anything other than a process to complement the agreement. There is something that came across here by Cholber when you talk of mile 14, which we have left to the people of our will, this is wrong, this is misleading. Mile 14 is not left to the people of our will. It is a disputed area like other disputed areas in South Sudan. And I'm the chairman of the Joint Border Commission between the Sudan and between Sudan and South Sudan. So far, it is one of the disputed areas. We have not left it to the people of Abyei because it belongs to the people of South Sudan. So the issue is not,
Thank you.
is not a will or the people of a will issue. It is the issue of the people of South Sudan, like other areas which are disputed and like other areas which are also claimed. So please take it from here that the issue is not about, is that they are not abandoned, but we are in the process. Issues of boundaries are not that simple. It's not just like sitting today and we sit and discuss and go away. Issues of borders are difficult issues that take time. Even America and Canada, up to now, their boundaries have not been drawn. Why? And they are the most advanced people in the world, the people of the first world, but they are unable to draw their boundaries up to now. Leave the fact that Sudan here, up to now, they did not solve the problem of Halaib at the borders. So it is not a simple task. Don't take it to be an easy thing that can be discussed within a day and night. No. It is a process, and we will continue to discuss it.
Thank you.
With that, I thank you very much, Dolco Media, and let me assure you and the people of South Sudan that we will fix South Sudan.
Thank you. That concludes the debate on federalism to South Sudan. With me has been an extraordinary panel composed of Honorable Michael McQuinleth, Minister of Information, Communication Technology, and Postal Services. Honorable Dr. Richard K. Muller, Minister of Federal Affairs. Honorable John Luke Jock, Minister of Transport. Honorable Onyoti Adigo Nyikwaj, Minister of Agriculture. Honorable Angelina Tang, Chairperson, Strategic Defense and Security Review. I would like to thank the audience. Many of them have asked questions and enriched this discussion. I also would like to thank the crew that put this beautiful show together. Among them, Augustino Albino Agok, he's at the back. Akenyajang Mabil, Santa Adrian, Gassim Edward, Rami Badwi, Akenyadeng, Emmanuel George, Majurchol Kor, Alina Nyang, Asim, Juma. Thank you to all of you. Let's meet another time.